Hafiz Saeed's brother-in-law Abdul Rahman Makki has been arrested in Pakistan today. Makki was arrested in Gujranwala and shifted to a jail in Lahore by the Counter-Terror Department of Pakistan. The timing is curious. Here's what else happened today. Terror financing watchdog FATF had a meeting. Their Asia-Pacific group met in Guangzhou in China. Clearly, Pakistan is trying to send a message eastwards. Following Makki's arrest, the state of Punjab in Pakistan has been put on high alert. But who is Abdul Rahman Makki and why is his arrest significant? Born in Bahawalpur in Pakistan's Punjab, Makki is the brother-in-law of the Lashkar-e-Toiba chief Hafiz Saeed and the second-in-command of the Lashkar-e-Toiba Front, Jamaat-ud-Dawa. He is also in charge of its charity, Faleh-e-Insaniyat, which uses donations for terror financing. He was given the charge to head the Jamaat-ud-Dawa after the Mumbai attack mastermind Hafiz Saeed was put under house arrest. He has held more than half a dozen rallies in Lahore and elsewhere in Pakistan. At every rally, he has instigated violence against India. He was named a specifically designated national by the United States in 2011. A year later, in 2012, the US announced a $2 million bounty on Makki's head. Makki is said to be close to Al-Qaeda's Ayman al-Zawahiri and ex-Taliban Supreme Commander Mullah Omar, who died in 2013. So why has he been arrested today? He was taken into custody for making hate speeches and criticizing the Pakistan government's action against banned outfits. Makki made speeches against the government's crackdown on terror groups in line with the FATF guidelines. He's been arrested under the Maintenance of Public Order Act in Pakistan, and that's the point to note here. Not arrested on charges of terror, but arrested to maintain law and order. This man is a terrorist. There are no two ways about it. According to Indian officials, there was credible information that linked Makki to the 26/11 Mumbai terror attacks. He was in direct touch with the Pakistan Army Major Sameer Ali, also accused in the attacks. The first time the Indian agencies heard of Makki was just before the 2001 Parliament attack. Indian officials say that he was then spotted regularly in training camps at Bahawalpur where terrorists were trained. He has regularly participated in meetings along the Afghanistan-Pakistan border where decisions on attacking the Indian mission in Kabul were taken. In September 2017, Abdul Rahman Makki threatened to intensify jihad in Jammu and Kashmir. His arrest is an indication of how Pakistan is buckling under international pressure to crack down on terror. This comes ahead of the FATF general meeting in the month of June and the IMF bailout of $6 billion that has made specific demands for action on terror financing and money laundering. The question then is this: is one arrest enough? Terror safe havens continue to have operational centers in Pakistan. They've been backed by Pakistan's deep state. And what about action against Maqsood, the chief of the Jaish-e-Mohammed, and Hafiz Saeed of the Lashkar-e-Toiba? Why has there been no real action against these men? Despite the immense pressure to act against Maqsood, the Pakistan government has shown little inclination or evidence of action. While Hafiz Saeed roams freely, holding rallies in Lahore under the very nose of the government of Pakistan. Why is this happening? Because this arrest is an eyewash. With the International Monetary Fund and the Financial Action Task Force breathing down Pakistan's neck, Prime Minister Imran Khan's government knows only too well that it has to be seen to be taking action against terror. The reported arrest of one man, Abdul Rahman Makki, is just another example of Pakistan's desperate attempt to keep international partners in good humor.
Pakistan is in the crosshairs of the Asia-Pacific Group, a regional affiliate of the Financial Action Task Force, or FATF. FATF began its two-day meeting at Guangzhou in China today, where Pakistan is defending its efforts against money laundering and terror financing. Barely hours before the meeting began, the Pakistani government said that it had arrested a terrorist, Abdul Rahman Makki. The arrest was intended to send out a message of Pakistan's intent when it comes to counter-terrorism. Abdul Rahman Makki is the head of Jamaat-ud-Dawa's political and international affairs. He is also in charge of its charity wing, the Faleh-e-Insaniyat Foundation. Makki is the brother-in-law of global terrorist Hafiz Saeed, Hafiz Saeed and Makki were involved in the 26/11 attacks in Mumbai. The US government sanctioned Makki in 2010, and in 2012 it put a reward of $2 million on his head. According to Pakistani media, Makki was arrested under the Maintenance of Public Order Act for hate speech and criticism of the Imran Khan government's action against terror outfits. The report suggested that Makki made a speech a few days ago in Gujranwala in which he slammed the Pakistani government for acting at the behest of the Financial Action Task Force's recommendations. Makki has since been shifted to a Lahore jail. The Pakistani government is projecting Makki's arrest as part of a crackdown on terror under the country's National Action Plan. The National Action Plan was adopted by the erstwhile government of Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif in 2015 to crack down on terrorist networks and terror financing. In March, 182 religious schools were taken into state custody and the assets of more than 100 people were frozen. In May, the Interior Ministry banned 11 organizations under the Anti-Terrorism Act for their alleged affiliation with banned terror groups such as the Jamaat-ud-Dawa. Bureau Report, Wion, World is One.
Now, it's called the deal of the century, an American plan to bring peace to West Asia. The plan is not officially out yet, but parts of it have leaked. And if this indeed is the plan, then no one will be happy about it. Wion's West Asia Bureau Chief Daniele Pagani tells you why.
There is much suspense around what's been called as deal of the century, a plan which, according to Washington, promises to give a solution to the longest lasting conflict in West Asia and in the world, the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. A team in the White House comprising Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and Trump's seasoned longtime advisor, Jason Greenblatt, has been working on the deal for almost 2 years. Jared Kushner seems confident that the plan will work, although Palestinians have already explicitly refused to recognize the US as a mediator in this process.
Look, this has been stuck. This has been stuck for, a long time. There hasn't been a lot of fresh ideas. There hasn't been any breakthroughs in a long time. And the reality is that the situation is getting more and more untenable. And so we didn't create a lot of the problems. I showed up here 2 years ago, but I was given the assignment of trying to find a solution between the two sides. And I think what we'll put forward is a framework that I think is realistic. It's based on it's executable. It's executable, and it's something that I do think will lead to both sides being much better off. And that was the way I approached it.
The team working on the deal managed so far to prevent any significant leak, leaving the public to guess what the plan may contain. But recently, media reports published some details given out by an American diplomat working on it. Israel would be asked to freeze the expansion of settlements inside the West Bank for 5 years, but it will see the contested old city of Jerusalem recognized as Israeli territory. Hamas will be asked to hand over all weapons and put the Gaza Strip under the control of the West Bank-based Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. And in return for all of this, Palestinians will receive generous incentives and donations from Arab neighbors. There seems to be no mention about the possibility of the 5 million Palestinian refugees scattered across West Asia returning to lands and properties they claim as their own. Jason Greenblatt has dismissed all media reports which claimed to be in possession of details on the deal of the century.
And Jason Greenblatt also said that it is now a matter of weeks before the deal gets published. Finally, in the first weeks of June, we will know exactly what this so-called game changer will actually say, what the deal will actually contain, so we will stop speculating. But if we look back at events which took place in the last 2 years, it is very unlikely that the deal will favor actually the Palestinian side of the conflict. In the past 2 years, Donald Trump's administration has been absolutely pro-Israel. They moved the United States Embassy from the internationally recognized capital city of Israel, Tel Aviv, to the wholly contested city of Jerusalem, which also Palestinians claim as their own capital city. The US stopped funding the United Nations agency helping the Palestinian refugees. They decided to give the Golan Heights to Israel to recognize this contested area as a fully Israeli territory. So all these moves were definitely pro-Israel. What has the Trump administration done to favor the Palestinians so far? Well, not much, at least nothing that is in the public domain. Also, Palestinians have clearly stated that they do not consider the United States of America a mediator. They do not want to talk with Washington about a possible peace deal. So this will make things very, very difficult. It seems that this plan is facing problems even without being made public. Daniele Pagani reporting in Jordan for Wion, World is One.
It's been exactly 2 months since the massacre in Christchurch in New Zealand, an attack that brought us face to face with the dangers of online extremism. And now the government of New Zealand is working to curb it. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern and her team are working on a pledge aimed at world leaders and tech companies to eliminate extremist content online. And joining her is French President Emmanuel Macron. They're hosting a meeting today at the Elysee Palace in Paris to discuss what has been dubbed as the Christchurch Call. It is a non-binding set of agreements. Every government and tech company present at the summit will sign it. That makes 17 countries, including India. Germany and Australia will sign it without attending the summit. The draft seeks to ban objectionable material online. Sources say 8 technology companies have answered the Christchurch Call, including Amazon, Google, Twitter, Microsoft and others. A big moment for Jacinda Ardern, certainly. Mr. Macron makes a natural ally. He's been clear that he's fed up with Facebook's failure to act on online extremism. His government is pushing ahead with reforms to make the company more accountable. But Facebook does have a history of actively resisting government intervention in its practices. In fact, founder and CEO Mark Zuckerberg has chosen to skip the Christchurch Call meeting. He will be represented by another company executive. But just before this meeting came Facebook's announcement that it is tightening the rules in allowing the usage of live streaming, the live streaming service, so that the Facebook live streaming facility is not misused to broadcast graphic, violent content. Just like what happened in the Christchurch terror attack in New Zealand, Facebook is deploying what is being called a one-strike policy. Even if a user has broken a certain rule only once, then he or she will be barred from live streaming. For instance, sharing a link of a terror group statement with no context would invite a ban. And this is something that many have commented on. Facebook has admitted that new technological innovations would be needed to combat such challenges that the world faces, and they will collectively work with governments across the world to deal with this. Joining us from Paris is Wion correspondent Elena Casas Montañez. Elena, good evening. This Christchurch Call has been answered by quite a number of countries and tech companies. Are these regulations going to be binding? How positive are the participants that this will be enforced and will bring about real change?
So companies including Facebook, Twitter and YouTube owner Google are signing up to this pledge, but it's important to bear in mind that it's a voluntary code of conduct. So they're essentially asking social media companies to regulate themselves, and in many cases just to abide by protocols that already exist, that they already have in place to take down terrorist content and terrorist propaganda online, but which aren't necessarily being followed. So what they're trying to do, the tech firms, is to show willing to comply with this code, show willing to keep taking terrorist content down and to do better than they have been doing in the past at following their own rules, in order to try and avoid governments taking another tack and choosing legislation. There is, both here in France and at the European level, legislation under discussion which would compel them to take down terrorist content and that would penalise them with fines that could be as much as 4% of a company's entire annual turnover if they do not take it down quickly enough. So the social media firms here are really just rushing to try and convince governments that they can be trusted to police themselves before the governments decide to regulate them with laws.
Right. Elena, thanks very much for bringing us that update. A joint statement is expected, voluntary, non-binding deal or draft agreement, but nonetheless, it's a start in Paris, the Christchurch Call. News.